or I would try to attack the submission. Normally, when you attack the submission, you go to an armbar. A good example for this, it's my brother's match against Cobrinha. When he submitted Cobrinha with the armbar, he used a leg drag, and then with the leg drag, he got to the side. And to defend the move, Cobrinha was pushing the shoulder and posting the elbow. And it gets to the same topic that I was talking about. You have to make a decision. You either commit to hold the person down and score the points, or you try to risk the side control and go for a submission or transfer yourself to the back. So he went to the armbar. He slid himself up into the leg over, attacking the armbar. Okay, so I think this is a good match for you guys to watch, and you see this concept being applied in a high-level match in like a very competitive scenario. The person using speed pass to get to the side, he came on top from a leg drag, from a sweep. But like it was exactly the same thing. Like he got to the side, and then that situation happened where like you have to make the decision, and in that fight, his decision was to attack the arm. But it's important for us to train all the scenarios, and that's like mainly the why I try to every time I teach to tell the students to think about all the scenarios that will happen in the fight. So this is a good example. You use speed pass, you get to the hip, and then what are the options that are going to happen from there? What the opponent will do from there, and how should I respond to each reaction? Because the more experience you have and the more familiar you are with the reactions that your opponent will have in the move, the easier it will be for you to see the opportunity to attack or to hold the position. And that's what makes the difference when you watch a white belt or a blue belt fighting and you watch a black belt. The black belt has been in that scenario multiple times. He studied the position and he understands what the possibilities are there and what the most common reactions are. And it's much easier for him to capitalize like an attack and to recognize any opportunity and attack the mistake. It's really important to understand that we are not focusing on targeting one single technique and understand that technique only. We are talking about concepts and allowing you to implement this concept to the game that you already have and the techniques that you already use. So this class, it's more about you understand the distance, you understand the concepts, and you apply it to your game. So you can be creative, you can use your own style and evolve your jiu-jitsu from there. One thing that is important, especially as a competitor and studying sparring, is that will be a lot of like it's important that you feel the fight. And you're going to have a lot of times where you're fighting from the far distance and you recognize that far distance is where your opponent feels comfortable. It's where they respond to the attacks really well. And it's where like they set up the groups that they really like. And the main thing is for you to recognize that and be able to switch. As a competitor, you learn to read the person's game as you fight and try to always find the easiest path to win. And if I recognize that the person that I'm fighting against is really good in the far distance, I'll always try to navigate from far distance to either near distance or medium distance where the person will not be very comfortable, where they're not going to have their main attacks, and for sure they're going to become much more vulnerable. They're going to make more mistakes. They're going to be uncomfortable and get tired and frustrated much faster. So this is something that it becomes much easier in the black belt or in the brown belt whenever you really become like a professional in the sport and that you fight against people that have been competing for a long time. Or it can be applied in training too, when you train with the same people over and over. So if I fight against someone that, for example, is really good with the spider guard and they feel really comfortable in the far distance, I should try to avoid that distance. I should try to close the space as fast as possible and force the person to fight in a distance where they are not comfortable, where their attacks are not as strong. This is something that I remember my professor always teaching us. So we would get to the competition, and he would always tell us to watch our opponent, watch the people that we were going to fight against, like their first match, their second match before we match up. And he would always tell us, like, try to recognize their strength, try to recognize their weakness, because that's how you're gonna make your fight much easier against this person. And I think that style of watching the fight and trying to recognize the weakness and the strength of a person made us the competitor that we became, and helped us to win all the titles. But it helped us to understand jiu-jitsu, where we could share and like explain the techniques to the students as well. So I think this is an exercise that everyone can do. You, whenever you're sitting out in class and you're watching people sparring, or especially the people that you always spar, it's important that you try to recognize the guard that they play, what distance they play, how they are, what they feel comfortable, what makes them feel very uncomfortable. And based on that, you make your decisions on how to fight against that person. Whenever you transfer that style, that mindset to the competition, it for sure makes you a much better competitor. So that just to finish this distance, let's say I'm fighting against Tynan, and he's a person that plays spider guard really well. And I start feeling the fight, and it doesn't matter how hard I try to use all the attacks from here, I'm having a lot of trouble to pass, because this is his main guard. This is the distance that he likes to fight. At this point, like by reading the fight and understanding what's happening, I would make the decision to go to the next distance and close the space and try to pass a different distance. So let's say I'm here. I would, instead of like keep trying to go around the legs, I would make the decision of jumping over one leg and closing the distance. Now I have a medium distance where he's using hooks. He's still using his feet and knee to frame, but I have the opportunity to control his upper body. So either controlling the collar or using underhooks. So that would be a smart decision for me, especially if I'm having a lot of trouble to pass from far distance. Now we're gonna start medium distance. So normally, like, I classify that by that knowing that the person, they have some sort of control over my body. So normally they have the lahiva, reverse the lahiva, butterfly guard, like any kind of hook or control that they have, and I'm very close to their hip, and I'm able to reach their upper body, I classify as a medium distance. So the most common scenario, especially like for my game based on like how I move, is reverse de la Riva. So it doesn't really matter like how the person fights and where I start the position. So like this scenario here, it's very common. Like whenever you start studying passing, it's a scenario that you're gonna see a lot because it's basically the halfway to pass the guard. You start from far away normally, and the closer you get to pass, like you have to pass through this distance. And normally the person, they are not gonna let you go from far distance all the way to the near distance where you have a lot of control and they don't have a lot of attacks. Normally the way for them to stop you, it's using some sort of control in this distance. So if I initiate the position far away and I start getting close to pass the guard, that's where he's gonna try to build his frame again and try to attack me from here. The main thing for me to understand here is like what type of control the person will try to use, so it's easier for me to attack. So normally they are using hooks. So that in this situation he's using a reverse de la Riva hook. If I had my other leg in front, and I'm gonna show details from here, he's gonna be using de la Riva. And he could be using a different type of attack that people normally use more in no-gi, where he's using butterfly guard. So that would be the same scenario where I have control of his upper body. I can use underhooks, but at the same time, I'm not too far from him. The first thing that I try to do to feel better control and to maintain myself in this distance is the grip on the collar. Okay, so if we are fighting in the gi, the strongest grip that I can have from this position, it's this grip on the collar here. I really believe this grip on the collar, it's what makes my passing very effective, because once I get a grip on the collar, it becomes really hard for the person to push me back to the far distance. So they're stuck with either accepting this distance until I pass,